Today, I'm going to answer a very simple question that has a surprisingly complex answer. How do I make sure that my lake house or family cottage stays in my family after I'm gone? I'm estate planning attorney Sean Eystone, and I've worked with many families over the past 20 years answering this very question. And the one thing that comes up time and time again is there isn't a best way. There's a best way for your family and for that property. So it's very important for you to sit down and have a strategy session to work through your issues and the property's issues to make sure that you have the best plan in place and that it actually works. Lake houses and cottages are such happy places that the intrinsic value of keeping it in the family far exceeds the value that'll show up on an appraisal for most families. They want to make sure that those memories are preserved and passed down to the next generation without causing unnecessary problems or even avoiding problems that they know are brewing. The biggest problem is that value. In Michigan, the value of the cottage oftentimes gets capped for tax purposes. So in one example, we had a family whose cottage was being taxed as though it was worth $100,000, even though it was worth over $1 million. If they had not done the planning with us, when the last of the surviving sisters and brothers passed, the taxes would have gone up from roughly $4,000 to $40,000 in just 1 year. That's a 10 times increase in taxes that we were able to help them avoid. So when you're working with your attorney, make sure that they address this property tax issue because it's a big one. The next biggest issue with cottage succession planning is who is going to own and who is going to control the cottage after this generation passes away. What might work when there's 4 or 5 siblings probably isn't going to work at all when there's 20 or 30 cousins trying to figure out how the property is to be used. Also, if you don't use the right kind of transfer, the property could transfer to people you don't even want involved. It could be your ex-son-in-law's widow who ends up having an interest in the property and not having to pay for it or anything. So it's very important that you have a very thought out management team and management succession process for your cottage. The next issue that comes up for a lot of families is how is the cottage going to be used? There might be some family members close by that want to use it all the time. There might be some that live on the other side of the world that can't use it at all. And how is this going to be managed for those people? And what's it going to cost them to do it? So it's very important to think through the process and have a default in place so that the family member knows what amount of time they're going to get to use it, how they're going to be able to use it, whether they can rent it out, whether they can have guests. All of these minor issues become huge issues once things go sour. So you want to make sure you have a strong plan in place that your management team can help make sure that your cottage plan actually works. Last but not least, the thing that trips most families up is how does everything get paid for this cottage? Because you might have 20 or 30 cousins all around the world who have an interest in this cottage, and they might not all want to use it. Some might want to have some say in the management, some might want to get bought out. So there's got to be things in place for your management team to allow this to happen, to allow people to be bought out, to allow people to trade their weeks, and to have a dispute resolution process in case that doesn't happen. If you have the financial ability, the best thing to do is have an endowment fund that will produce enough income to pay for everything. And that makes it a whole lot easier for everyone else. And that's the best way for your estate plan to actually work with a cottage or lake house in it. If you have a cottage or lake house in your family and you want to make sure that it transfers to the next generation successfully, give us a call at the number below to schedule a strategy session with one of our attorneys to make sure that the plan you put in place actually works.